Give you a short introduction because I have only 15 minutes available, and when you were visiting Norway I had 45 minutes and I thought that was little. I think I spent an hour, but that's a challenge I have to manage then. Two words about NHO, the Employer Association of Norway. There are 3-4 of them, but NHO is by far the most representative one, the biggest one. We are representing approximately 700,000 employees in 30,000 companies, which is more than 40% of the private market in Norway. So we are representing more than 40% of the private labor market in Norway. So we are truly representative, and people are listening when we are talking, and we appreciate that very much because then we are growing further. We are, for the last few years actually, to be honest, been more committed to promote the collective agreements. So today, 75% of the employees in our member companies is working in a company with one or more collective agreements, 75%. So it's a very high density of collective agreements. In Norway, the density of the union density is approximately 50%. Going to Sweden, Denmark, it's higher, it's 65, 75. Finland, I'm not sure, around the same, I think. And Iceland is 90%. But there's a very specific reason for that. 40% union density in private sector, and that is extremely high because we don't have any financial incentives like you have in Sweden and Denmark. In Sweden and Denmark, the right of sickness leave payment, pension schemes are linked to the unions. It's not that in Norway. So the only financial incentives is that your member fee as a member of the union are deductible to your tax bill. That's the only really fee you have. We have a system with national collective agreements on sectoral level. NHO is part of 200 agreements. 120 of those is with LO, the main counterpartner, so to say. And one of the things that are driving the development in Norway and the position of the social partners is the fact that both the Confederation and the sectoral federations are signatories to the collective agreement. So the Confederation on the top, the umbrella, LO and NHO, have both a saying in the development of each and all these agreements. 200 in total. All of these agreements is based on the fact that there is a framework, but it is emphasizing and is empowering the local social partners, the shop stewards and the management to have a large freedom. So the Confederation and the federations are not interacting to the local level. We are leaving that to the local level because we believe that the most important thing and the basis for the tripartite system is the bipartite. The bipartite systems and the bipartite relations are the basis, is the foundation of all of our achievements in the Nordic model when it comes to the fact that it is based on trust and legitimacy to the federations and the confederation. That is created through the local commitment and the local achievements, so to say. So the tripartite dialogue is, of course, it's an important part of it, but this is based on the local level and the fact that we have more than 200 collective agreements. And that is also a thing to, so to say, reflect upon. Coming back to it, is that the collective agreements is an independent and it's an important part of the relationship, but it's also, on the other hand, a basis and a platform for what we are calling more the social dialogue on development issues, the agenda. So we are separating those two things, But the important thing is then that this is the same people. If you are going to other countries in the continental Europe or in other places, before I came to NHO, I was a member of corporate management of a Norwegian international company. So I implemented social dialogue in 5 continents in pulp and paper companies. So they're really, the fact that you are trusting is the basis. So you can ask, why is this coming up as a powerful position? This is, so to say, a short list of the prerequisite for the system. It's a very fine-tuned and balanced instrument. The peace obligation is probably new for most of you. It's three very important legs in the system. One, we are distinguishing between disputes of interest and legal disputes. This distinguishment is based or is supported or is packed into a framework of peace obligation throughout the period of agreement. So, and that is respected by the unions. We have 1 to 2 illegal actions. You can say actions, industrial actions. It's not strikes, it's industrial actions. 1 to 2 amongst our companies every year. If you go to Finland, they have probably 1 to 2 every week. So important part of this is that the unions, the shop stewards, the local unions and the federations and LO as a confederation is respecting the peace obligation. That was a kind of the payment of why the employer side was positive to create a legal framework and enter into the first collective agreement in Norway back in 1907. This legal act is from 1917, so the peace obligation was implemented in 1917 and it has been respected. So when you have a dispute of the understanding of the collective agreement, you are not allowed to use industrial action. You need to go to the labor court. We have a separate labor court and that is functioning very well. What is of the value added for the employers? What is the value added for employers to enter into a collective agreement? I mean, a collective agreement is in its nature a restriction on the managerial prerogative for the employer. The right to manage is taken down by this system. It is very, so to say, easy to explain. It's a common framework and a cost base. That's why we are we are promoting the national level as important, because through the national level, the collective agreement on national level, we are making a framework for all the companies. We are taking out some part of the labor market competition. It's the same work hours, it's the same payment for shift, it's the same payment and the same rules for working clothes, for health and safety processes and all these things. It's common rules, and that creates a system that makes sure that we are not competing on things that we shouldn't compete on. That is, so to say, of an importance beyond the competition part of it. It's an efficient way of managing the workforce. That is a very positive thing for the management, for the owners of the company. You can enter into an agreement locally with the shop steward, and that can be applicable for all employees. It's a way of managing the company through the fact that this is in the act said that an agreement with the union, local union, is applicable for all employees. It's a conflict-solving process. When you have conflict in the company can, so to say, outsource the conflict. So the confederation and on both sides, the federation is taking over the conflict and are solving the conflict beyond the company. So they can just concentrate on producing, and the social partners taking care of the conflict, which is important to do before it ends up in a conflict situation. Probably the most important things today, the point that this really has developed and is kind of a typical part of the Nordic model, is that this is a dynamic platform for involvement between management and employee representatives. What is then different from the continental Europe is that the collaboration between management and the shop stewards is based on the collective agreement, and it's the same person that are representing the employees in the context of conflict of interest and in the context of developing the company as such. So that is a very challenging position to have, that your members are trusting you to do both, but that is really a key in this model. And we combine macro and micro in a way through this system. The philosophy from the state has been, since pre-war actually, that the state has left to the social partners through this collective agreement system, the 200 agreements, to take the responsibility of part of the framework in the labor market. So when we have CBAs above the local level, as I said, between the social partners, we are creating the framework for all the companies. So we have a role to play in the fact that the parliament is leaving us to do that instead of regulating it by law. And then the CBAs on local level and the social dialogue on the local level is then developing the framework and the platform for having a sustainable business. Remember that the unions in Norway, they are very clear on their commitments to make the businesses sustainable. It's not a question of taking us as much as possible from the owners. It's to find a balance between sharing the profit between the capital and the employees. Yeah, it's a picture, a little bit busy picture, showing that for the blue collars, LO, in fact, we have then the collective agreements based on sectoral industries, which means that you can, in the collective agreement, have specialized regulation for this industry, but it's also creating a common interest between the employee side and the employer side to create the framework for the industries, also in policies. That binds those two social partners together in the tripartite dialogue. So why is the tripartite dialogue so powerful in Norway or in the Nordic model? That is because we have the collective agreements with a common interest of the industries. We don't have that for the white collars. That's only on the professional side. But for the blue collars, LO, this is an important part of it. From a very important step in the development of the Nordic model. There are two steps. In the 30s, you had a downturn in the 30s, and the Labour Party, they was, so to say, orienting themselves towards the Eurocommunism. The Conservative Party in the parliament, they were very eager to crush and to stop the unions from having collective agreements and have impact on the companies. They were very conservative. They even used the armed forces towards the local unions. Then the social partners, LO and NHO, they come together and say, we are not going to participate on this because a battle is not creating value for either for the nation, for the companies, or for the employees. So we enter into an agreement called the Basic Agreement, still called what's the name, Janina? Constitution. The Constitution of the Bible. Which means that there you have the respect of shop stewards. The shop stewards are paid, and the core idea behind that, the core idea behind the agreement in 1935 is that the unions or the shop stewards on local level, they should be heard before decision is taken. Remember, it's based on peace obligation. It is a process, it's a part of a decision process. The idea is that there is so much knowledge which is important for the management before decision is taken to be heard. So the shop stewards have the right to come forward to the top management in the company to give their view on important things, important issues that are up on the agenda in the management before the management is taking the decision. It is not limiting the right to manage from the owner side, but is limiting the process by saying that as a management or an owner of the company, you are obliged to listen to your employees before you take the decision. This was extended in 1976 by a law, an act of the limited companies, where we also have employee representatives on the board of directors. So 1/3 of the board of directors in limited companies, listed companies, are elected by the employees. They have their own people. In the 1960s, 50s, 60s, after the Second World War, there was a need of rebuilding Norway. Again, LO and NHO come together and they created a new platform for collaboration on local level, but they also adopted an idea from the economist called Mr. Aukrust, called the pace-setting model. We still have the pace-setting model. We were in the startup of the pace-setting agreement when you visited Norway. And the idea behind that is that Norway as a nation has a very open economy. 70% of our economy is exposed to import-export, mainly export in the 60s. What was the most important thing we could secure for having the ability of rebuilding our country? That was to keep the export industry competitive. And that still runs in Norway. So we have a system where the first group, the mechanical industries, they are negotiating their agreement and they agree on this year's salary increase. And that is setting a pace for the total labor market. So it is the mechanical industries, shipyards, are, so to say, setting a framework that also applies to the public sector. This year, 3.7% increase, that goes for all in Norway. It's an extremely powerful way of doing it, but it secures the fact that we are keeping the competitiveness of the export industry. We have the same in Sweden, but not in other countries. In Sweden, it's called Märke. What is this based on? It's based on trust. Because the unions, LO, is saying we are negotiating on the sectoral level on the increase this year, then we have the right to strike. This increasement represents approximately 1/3 of the total increasement that year. The rest happens on local level. And on the local level, there are no right to strike. The peace obligation comes in force when you are concluding the sectoral agreement, and then LO saying we are trusting the employers that we are sharing in a fair way between the capital and the laborers. In mechanical industries, it's 2080. And we have agreed there's 4 factors. It's the financial results, productivity, future prospects, and competitiveness of the company that are ruling the decision of the wage increasement that year. So that is based on the result on the company, but is within the framework of what the nation can bear or what we can take forward. So that is a combined system, and that is the main reason for why OECD and The Economist is saying that the Nordic model is probably the best model of controlling the cost and the competitiveness of a country's industries for the future. So, based on these elements, still the gearbox is a social dialogue in Norway. And this is my favorite picture, created by myself many years back. The first time I was doing this presentation in Bulgaria, actually. And this is really the core. This is the core. It's based on trust and transparency. You as an employer, you need to trust your employees. You need to share information. If you're doing that, the answer should be back, we are trusting you. We are playing by the rules. We are distinguishing between conflict of interest, conflict of law. And then we are able to start a system where we, before lunch, are negotiating or discussing terms and conditions on the local level, the traditional part of overwork. Then we go in the canteen to have lunch with our friends, and coming back after lunch, based on this basic agreement, we are dealing with market strategy, sales strategy, health and safety, improvement, work processes, everything. Because we believe that the people on the shop floor has the best information of bringing forward to the company or to the management before decision is taken. That is a dynamic way of working, but is then based on the trust that you are able to separate those two things. And I must say that since the 1960s, LO has been very clear, and that's a message to you then, that workers and management have a mutual interest in making the company competitive. On the so to say, on the floor, on the national floor, between LO and NHO and all the sectoral federations, we are playing an important role in the democratic social order. I'm often saying that LO and NHO is a kind of a democratic controller, because the parliament and the politicians knows that when LO and NHO agree on a position, we are representing 800,000 voters. We are representing more than 40% of the private labor market and the businesses. They are listening. Because they know if they are not, there will be a battle where NHO and LO is clear on their position, and the parliament or the parties in the parliament are clear on their positions. And they know who's going to win. It is the social partners. Thank you. I probably talked too long.